Welcome back to Dinar Stories. If you've been following global currency movements, long-term holding strategies, and revaluation discussions, today's update is one you need to hear carefully from start to finish. What we're covering today represents a significant shift in how the Iraqi Dinar and the Vietnamese Dong are being discussed within financial and banking circles. This is not rumor-based chatter, this is not recycled speculation, and this is not driven by hype. Today's focus is on what is being described as the activation of contract rates for both currencies, a development that fundamentally changes the conversation. For a long time, the Iraqi Dinar and the Vietnamese Dong existed in a financial waiting zone. Holders tracked reforms, central bank announcements, infrastructure upgrades, and economic restructuring, all while holding assets that many outside the space dismissed or misunderstood. And it is definitely not a rumor-driven valuation. Contract rates are values used within formal financial agreements between banks, institutions, corporations, and government-linked entities. They are applied in structured settlements, institutional transactions, and large-scale financial operations. When a currency reaches this stage, it is no longer theoretical. It becomes operational. That operational status is what many long-term holders have been waiting for because it bridges the gap between belief and real-world usability. For Iraqi dinar holders, this moment represents a long-awaited turning point. Iraq has spent years rebuilding its financial system, modernizing banking infrastructure, strengthening compliance standards, and stabilizing its economic frameworks. Throughout this entire process, holders were consistently encouraged to focus on reforms rather than rumors. Now let's look at the Vietnamese Dong, which follows a different but equally important path. Vietnam's economic growth over the past decade has been steady, strategic, and increasingly influential on the global stage. Manufacturing expansion, booming exports, foreign investment, and modernization have all strengthened Vietnam's financial position. Yet despite these massive advances, the Dong remained undervalued and often overlooked. Contract trade recognition completely changes how the Dong is viewed. It suggests that the currency is stepping into a broader financial role, one where it can be used confidently within structured transactions rather than remaining limited to domestic or informal exchange contexts. So, why does the timing of all this matter so much? What makes today's update especially notable is the timing. Reports indicate that both the Iraqi Dinar and the Vietnamese Dong are seeing contract rate activation within the same broader window. That matters because global financial systems do not move randomly. They move when infrastructure, compliance, liquidity pathways, and regulatory readiness all align. Seeing multiple currencies advance together suggests coordination, not coincidence. It indicates that larger financial systems are coming online, systems designed to handle valuation and exchange processes in a controlled and structured manner. This also addresses a major issue, verification. For years, one of the most frustrating aspects for holders has been the lack of tangible confirmation. People could physically hold currency, follow reform milestones, and track economic progress, yet still feel disconnected from any official acknowledgement. Contract rates begin closing that gap. They provide a reference point that exists within formal banking and institutional environments. That doesn't mean holders must act immediately, but it does mean the asset they hold now carries a different status than it did before. Next, let's talk about liquidity, which is another critical implication. When a currency reaches the stage of having active contract rates, banks and institutions can begin planning structured exchanges, settlements, and conversions. Liquidity doesn't just appear overnight, but the pathway for it to flow opens up. This is crucial because liquidity transforms value from a theoretical concept into something usable. Without liquidity, value remains just an idea. With liquidity, strategic decisions become possible. I also want to touch on the emotional reality for long-term holders. Emotionally, this moment carries a weight that outsiders may not fully understand. Many of you have carried these currencies quietly for years, often facing skepticism from friends, family, or even financial professionals. Seeing official recognition begin to surface is validating. It confirms that your patience mattered, that your research had value, and that long-term discipline has meaning. This isn't about hype, it's about acknowledgement. However, it's extremely important to understand what today's update does not mean. This is not a signal to panic. This is not a signal to rush. This is not a guarantee of instant exchange or immediate financial change. Activation is a process, not a single event. Contract rates going live represent readiness and recognition, not an endpoint. Those who benefit most from moments like this are those who remain calm, informed, and strategic. So, what are the smart steps holders should take now? First, organization. Ensure your holdings are secure, documented, and properly stored. Second, education. Understand how exchanges work in your region, what compliance requirements exist, and how banks handle large currency transactions. Third, monitor official channels. Avoid chasing every headline or social media post. Focus on consistency, confirmation, and credibility. From a global perspective, this development is being watched very closely. Banks, investors, and institutions pay attention to contract rate activation because it signals stability and readiness. Institutional interest brings structure, liquidity, and long-term engagement, not short-term volatility. Historically, moments like this are remembered not because they were loud, but because they were foundational. Years from now, holders may look back and realize that this was the point where the narrative changed, where speculation gave way to structure, and belief was finally met with confirmation. For Iraqi Dinar and Vietnamese Dong holders, today marks a significant shift from if to how, from waiting to positioning. Stay informed. Stay calm. Stay strategic. Thank you for being part of Dinar Stories. If you value grounded updates without all the unnecessary noise, stay connected and share this report with others who are holding. The currency landscape is evolving and informed holders are best positioned for what comes next. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next update.